This week on Mgahawa.
So there have been a series of relatively high impact disasters in the last maybe 2-3 years since then, and seemingly the response is always very slow and very labored. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I know we're a third world country, so I mean, maybe there's issues with capacity.
Right.
But if you take a look back, because of what happened in Bukoba, there have been efforts as well as funding from donors to create a structure. And I think the Prime Minister's office has a department called DMD, Disaster Management Department, and there's a whole framework of how we should be actually go about handle as well as prepare for disasters, all the way to the village level. Something that was very surprising to me that I learned. But it doesn't seem, when these things happen, you always have a sense of, when you look at the news and read about it, it doesn't seem like there's anybody doing anything. As in, the response is usually private sector. So, I mean, I think one of the things that I noticed with the marking of Amby Bukoba was the supermodel, Tanzanian supermodel Fabiana Matata, contributing 500 vests in Mwanza. And obviously, for her, it was a personal tragedy. She lost her mother. But, I thought that was very positive, very, very, very timely. One of the key things, though, that was said during sort of that commemoration was, I can't remember who the gentleman was, but this was on TBC. And he talked about how she was the first one that actually contributed life vests from a private sector. Yeah, so I was like, oh my God, nobody has actually thought about contributing life vests from a private sector perspective since, that time, and given also the fact that we had this problem in Zanzibar. Maybe they have in Zanzibar, I'm not sure, maybe it's not being covered in the news, but you get that sense that there's just sort of nothing there.
So yeah, the response being that it's episodic,
yes,
rather than a sort of a
very much so. We operate on reaction to an action, a reaction to a tragedy, and then after that, everyone goes home and they forget about it. And
even then, like I said, it's mostly, when the floods happened.
Yes.
I remember seeing people reacting, groups
I was
forming
one of them.
On Twitter, on Facebook, doing all this stuff, but then. From the government, where
too much.
I didn't even see it. It was just there's just this feeling of it's almost as if there's no department, no nothing.
There's also an element of agency that comes to it, like individual agency, when it comes to these things. Yes. In a lot of these tragedies, Amby Bukoba, the Spice Islander in Zanzibar, as well, it was reported that apparently it was overcapacity that had contributed to the accident.
Yes.
Now, sorry, and you say apparently because there have been no research to actually come down to the conclusion of what caused it.
Yeah, there is no definitive conclusions as to what was the exact cause of the accident. But nevertheless, one thing was clear was the fact that there were more people in both these ferries than perhaps they were capable of carrying.
Right.
Now, when does it stop being, an individual sort of role to say that, what, this ferry is full right now, maybe I should, get on it? And when does it become, a regulatory thing? Art and questions of free speech and how those two sort of relate to each other. How far is too far, Amby?
Okay, on the issue of President Zuma, he had that coming. He's, even on the 2005, I think it was case where he went and had unprotected sex with HIV positive person, then in court said that after the action, he washed his private parts and this would somehow be okay. He's made himself a target. He's not exactly a state leader who, gives you confidence that he can control himself. And I mean, aside from those 6 wives, he's got numerous concubines or whatever side ladies. So he's made himself a target. That said, I don't think there should be any limits of artistic expression. I can wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm bold. I could also wake up in the morning and decide I'm going to draw an image of somebody and make them bold. And this is me being very polite. But if somebody wants to express themselves artistically, there should be no limit. The fact that it was head of state, a president, in a country that allows and has laws that allow it, there should be no issue.
Now here's my worry though when I hear that kind of sentiment being expressed, because usually what happens is, and it manifested itself just now, which is that when you have that kind of provocative expression of something that should be very serious, people tend to get bogged down on the small details. So we are talking about Zuma and his overly perhaps excited private life, but not about the bigger issues.
Catch Mgahawa every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. Mgahawa, globally local.